Hello, everybody. This is Alicia, Liz, and Ant, and we are Servant Decoded, back to do a deep dive into Servant Season 4, Episode 4, titled Boo. Okay, have you guys processed?
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Boo.
Boo.
It's Halloween
I mean, that's what sure, why not?
in the world of
Sometimes,
returners. It is Halloween.
sometimes September feels like 3 months. I mean,
You know. All right. So this episode was maybe a little more divisive. I don't know, maybe that's not the right word.
well, that's pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, a little more divisive than maybe other episodes. Just because I think that it maybe felt like the story didn't get progressed a whole lot.
Yeah, and it did in a rather odd way.
But
Odd
yeah, it
manner.
also did. And hopefully by the end of our discussion, you guys listening maybe will feel like you have a better handle on what you want to take away from the episode. So that is our hope. We are not here to be allegiant to the show or who's ever making the show, so much so that we overlook flaws. We certainly had our own mixed feelings about this episode, which I'm sure will come up along the way. But we've had some good discussions that I think have gotten us to maybe a point where we feel like there was some productivity through this episode. We just, sometimes you've got to adjust your way of looking at things to find it, maybe. I don't know. That's how I felt as we've been talking. So we'll see. We'll see how you guys feel after we drone on for a little while.
Yeah, art is a conversation.
Yeah, right.
These things go both ways, for sure.
A lot of times too, I think that when you watch something, maybe you have to sit with it for a minute and think about it. Maybe you rewatch it, you talk about it, maybe you read about it. I don't know. I don't really like to give like a super fast judgment on something, maybe an opinion, but not necessarily a judgment. But I did feel like I wanted to sit with this episode a little bit more before we said anything about it, just because on the surface it felt like not much happened. But I do, now that we've talked, feel like we made some more progress. And then at the end, after we're going to talk about the episode and what we felt were like the major beats and things, we're going to kind of talk about the different groups. And then at the end, we're just going to do a quick little maybe rundown of some of the things that we have questions on still, or some loose threads that were created in other seasons that we're really hoping they pick back up and conclude for us by the end of the season. So, all right. So, Liz, did you want to give us just a real quick recap on what happens in the episode?
Yeah, it's Halloween. I don't think anyone's feeling in the mood, but they're trying. Sean's trying for Dorothy. Dorothy's trying for Jericho. Leanne is trying because the nurse fairy witches said it might be fun. And Julian's just mad because his car got penised. So he eats a bunch of candy.
I don't know if you guys have seen that show that was on Netflix.
Yes.
Have you?
So good.
Oh, American something?
Is it American Vandal?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all I can think about when I saw the penises on the cars.
Yeah. Great show.
Great show.
Check it out.
So good. First season is awesome. Highly recommend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Leanne decides to go cult hunting, but ends up mostly hunting children.
Yeah, as one does,
And Uncle George pops up as a poorly disguised ghost and kind of spies on Sean for a little bit, and then meets up with Roscoe and gives us a lot of exposition about how bad Leanne is, and the danger is growing worse every day, and it might be too late, but we have to try. And if we don't succeed in what we're doing, there may not be a world left, and it could even be worse than that. And Sean switches from Team Leanne to Team Dorothy.
There we go.
Everybody pick your favorite hashtag.
Oh man. So yeah, I guess what I continue to like about the show is that it's never quite what I expect, good or bad. I don't know what I expected from this episode, but I don't think that was it. That's okay though. I guess maybe I'm expecting a little bit more movement from the side of Uncle George. I guess also like feeling like at the end of season 3, there was a really big gauntlet laid down and a really, and George was like, this is it. We got to give it our best shot. And so maybe I've expected a little bit more from Uncle George and whoever he's rallying to help him take Leanne down.
Yeah, I don't see anyone there other than Roscoe.
Right.
And you can only peep and snoop for so long.
Yeah.
Like what are we waiting for?
Exactly. So maybe it's a weird place to start, but it just kind of goes with the conversation, which is, the Uncle George of it all. And at the end of the episode, he tells Roscoe that certain things are already in play. And I found myself wondering what that was. And he also said that he expects the Turners to be on board with the plan.
Yeah, they may already be ready to turn on Leanne.
To help. Yeah. So what do you guys take from that? What do you think he means when he says other things already in play?
Well,
So-
I mean, sure.
Oh,
go
no,
ahead.
I posited maybe the nurse fairy witches are there,
Right.
are what's already there in place.
That would be the most obvious because didn't he say people?
Pieces, I believe. Certain pieces, I have it written down. Fear not, certain pieces are already in place.
Mm.
And if I'm not mistaken, even the Turners will be ready to help us. So pieces, plural, 1, 2. Bippity boppity boo.
Oh, okay. I have a wild thought.
Yeah.
Sure.
What if Toby was a Trojan horse?
Ooh.
I think that's pretty good actually, because he doesn't seem to know very much though.
Mm-mm.
But he seems much more confident this season.
And he's like trying to insert himself when there's no grounds for that to make sense.
Other than like he must know that she's involved with Julian.
Yeah. So he's playing things as though he's interacting with the old version of Leanne from season 1, who just wanted to hold his hand and get a kiss. And he wasn't into her back then, but he did know that's what she wanted. So I wonder because they're kind of playing it like he's under her spell, but maybe he's trying to.
I don't think that makes sense. Yeah. Trying to what? But
Yeah.
for who?
Well, Uncle George, when talking to Roscoe, says something like, "You've been invaluable because you've been our main connection to the house or to the family." And Toby would be another excellent in.
I could be wrong, but just a fun little.
Well, that is interesting.
Like,
I like that.
Any sort of positive effect. So.
Mm-hmm. And it might explain why he keeps trying to hang around when clearly she doesn't want him to hang around. She's like, go home, leave me alone.
And Sean doesn't really need him. I mean, not as much.
Right.
No. Uncle George says, "We need you. You've kept us close to the family, and they're the only way we can reach her."
Yeah, which I thought was an interesting thing to say, that they were the only way that he could reach her.
Yeah,
I didn't really understand why. I just thought when he said, I was like, well, hopefully that makes a little more sense soon. I don't know.
I guess because she's so enmeshed with Dorothy, and then like who else would be able to speak to her on that level to maybe influence her to come home or whatever it is that they're wanting to happen.
Yeah. If she's still at the Turners, if she's still enmeshed with them, at least she's contained to some extent.
And she seems to be happy.
Right.
So it's calm.
Yeah.
I took it literally.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think back to maybe not the last episode, but the one before, maybe it was last, when Leanne said something like, "Don't they know what I do to people that come after me? Haven't they learned yet?" So they need the spies and people who can get close to her because she's thwarted every attack so far.
Yeah.
They need someone on the inside.
Right. The Trojan horse.
Yes.
That would be pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Maybe
we've
got Roscoe, we've got Toby, we've got these nurses, we've got multiple issues happening in the Turner home that have to be managed. Right. And so I think that ultimately, the Turner family has to wake up and deal with the loss and their grief in order for them to then be willing and ready to get rid of Jericho, right? So they have to be able to let go of Jericho in order to let go of Leanne.
Correct.
And George knows that, even if they don't. You know, I do think that Julian knows that.
And Sean.
And now Sean does. I don't think that he really accepted it until this episode, though.
Correct.
But yeah, we're having to have an awakening of not just Dorothy. Dorothy's got to wake up, but so does Sean. And so does Julian for one reason or another, although he may be too far gone in general. But like, yeah, they have to...
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I mean, Julian seems fine. Not fine, but I think like that's probably just a symptom of Leanne.
Like being under her spell.
Right. I mean,
or like he's darker and angrier because she is.
Yeah, and then maybe it's confusing because he seems to, I don't know if he feels that way, but you would think he would kind of have a little bit of an edge over her, like power dynamic wise. And as she's like, oh, don't worry about me. So it's like,
well, yeah,
but I mean, he's not.
So he doesn't feel like needed either.
Right. And he doesn't, I mean, not the, I guess maybe candy is the new addiction or whatever, or I guess Leanne is, but like, he's not drinking, he's not on drugs. It's like, he's not too far gone.
Well, he's drinking, isn't he?
Was he?
I mean, in general, he wasn't drinking this episode, but like,
they don't make as much of a show of it as they have in the past.
Correct.
And I guess for me that implies something. Maybe it's not meant to. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get completely what you're saying. Yeah. And a lot of times I think, you know, with addicts or people that have addictive tendencies, yeah, you go from one to the next. You may not even realize it. So absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that could be a person. That could be anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
very relatable.
Definitely.
In my notes, I wrote, you know, about Julian saying, you've got to pick a side. You know, I'm just going with it. Like I've relegated myself to the fact that I'm kind of fucked. I'm on Team Leanne and I can't get away.
So why do you think he's on Team Leanne?
He's apathetic.
Well, that's what I was asking myself is, what are you so ready to get rid of your sister? Are you so willing to turn on Dorothy, with whom he's so close?
What about this?
I don't think it's so much as getting rid of Dorothy, is it?
So okay, how about this?
Or to lose, I mean.
Right, okay. Because I mean,
okay. So Julian knows that Jericho died. He seems to know somehow intrinsically within himself that she is responsible for bringing Jericho back to life. He doesn't seem to still believe that it's another baby. So I wonder if he perceives his own life to be in existence because of her.
In service of Dorothy.
Well, so he died when he OD'd and she breathe life back into him. So is there a part of him that wonders that if Leanne goes away, then will he also go away too?
It's also it's that, but I think it's also like his guilt of not answering when Dorothy called.
Yeah.
And like the weight and implication of that.
Yeah.
What I just got from that is the guilt that he has around his inadvertent role in Jericho's death.
Right.
I'm gonna stay Team Leanne and do whatever I have to do to make her happy so that my sister can have her baby back.
That's interesting.
I may be unhappy, but I'm gonna,
make that sacrifice for Dorothy.
Like, yes. It could be worse. I mean, it's pretty bad, but it could be worse.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Because
small price to pay.
Yeah, like pretty much.
She's a little crazy, but
we get along.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And there's money anyway, so.
Wow, that's interesting. All right.
Huh.
Can we talk about the nurses in the attic?
Yeah. So let's talk about the nurses in the attic and what their purpose is and what's going on there. Yeah.
Because the way so everything's good. Like you threatened me with a dagger and cut my blouse, but we're cool.
All good.
All good. It's Halloween.
They don't seem like scared of her at all.
No. And they're like, are you gonna dress up, Leanne? And she's like, no, Halloween's stupid, it's for kids. And then Bev says, oh honey, beg to differ. My friends and I used to go wild. Leanne says, what do you mean? And then Bev says, well, Halloween's a space to embrace your fears, indulge in your darkest fantasies. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And then Bobby goes,
the wink and the thing.
Cat hiss. It seems like Leanne did exactly that. She embraced her fears, conquering them head on, and started to indulge in dark fantasies.
Do you think that they're provoking her on purpose?
That's what I got from this one interaction. Yeah.
Like if they're plants to foster Dorothy waking up, then they have to force that issue. They have to force they need to make things progress so that there's a reason.
Or are they accelerating her progression, whatever the thing George is trying to prevent is?
Right. Maybe. Maybe. So like, are they progressing it for good or for bad?
Ooh, what about this? We saw the reaction to Leanne threatening them as cult members last week. And it ends with Leanne looking like a fool and being sent to her room. So what if they're encouraging more of that to make her look more and more paranoid?
Right.
And unhinged.
Exactly.
And unstable.
Right. Because then that will help the others in the home, the two men that have been dragging their feet on seeing Leanne for who she really is, that helps progress that effort.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Pieces in play. Yeah, there's definitely something, there's something up there.
There's something.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little weird that like they were holding those masks to their faces and then turned around like that at the same time. Like we talked last week about the comedy of them sort of being played on, but this week it was like, why are we doing stuff like that?
It's just an extension of the other thing where they like had to sing a song to introduce themselves to the house, and like they're just show people, maybe
they're just
or like they're just into that. I think it's like a lot, but yeah, I don't know that it means anything. It's just
kind of their shtick,
an extension of the fairy thing, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, I get you. Like, okay.
It was interesting to see the attic with all the tapestries up and stuff like that. I wondered.
Oh yeah, that's really cool.
What the evolution of the attic looking like that was how that occurred.
That's why I thought it was like a totally different room.
Yeah, and it felt smaller because of it too.
Like, it was a different angle for sure. But yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to say about the nurses with air quotes around it?
I mean, I think the thing that you said about them seeming to be kind of poking and prodding at Dorothy to get her to wake up. I'm like, oh, what about the costume he wore last year?
Right, exactly.
Right. She got stuck on that. That was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, where she had pulled out her old calendar, the one with the Post-its.
And they're asking for lots of questions.
They're asking a lot of questions.
A lot of questions. They're very nosy.
And playing therapist.
And then going, oh, well, it's probably just old age. So that gets confusing to me, because if they are trying to like push her to wake up, if that's kind of what their purpose is, then why turn around and go, oh, well, it's probably just getting older and we don't remember everything?
Because that's such a ridiculous answer. She's nowhere near their age.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, people make jokes.
Like just giving a dumb answer and expecting her to be like, well, that's not it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Let me ponder more on this.
Yeah. Okay.
That was how I took it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Going, I guess, a little bit further down that Dorothy awakening. I popped on Reddit for a little bit and was reading some people's thoughts, and it did kind of make me look at this in a different light. How did you guys feel about them putting Jericho as a lobster boiling in a pot?
I wrote spoiled baby fucked up.
Yeah.
That's pretty 1-to-1.
I mean,
how do you miss that?
I don't know. Maybe we don't miss that.
Sean.
Like at first I was like, oh, Ratatouille. And then I thought, oh my God, but this baby literally was cooked. I know that's a horrible thing to say. You're not supposed to say it out loud, but like, that's what we're thinking, so how does that not,
especially on the Tales of Seance,
right? And how and Sean, who has seemingly the full knowledge of that, how does that not bother him?
That's what I'm saying. Sean,
I hate to be that guy, but fun little details,
right? Like I don't
really know what else.
Yeah, like originally I just thought like, oh, it's cute. I didn't really think about like the implication of it. But then once I saw other people go, thinking about it, and I thought, God, that is pretty effed up.
Well, and if it had just been in the pot, but with the bubbles.
Yeah.
This really is boiling.
And we know, of course, that lobsters are put in alive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Terrible.
The other thing that it made me think about too was just the lobster ice cream from season 1.
Oh, yeah.
And also the fact that they ate Jericho's placenta. So I just kind of thought about, season 1, like with him making the lobster ice, feeding Jericho. Anyways, I'm going to stop there. But when we talk about like parallels and whatnot, those were the 2 that came to my mind, aside from the most obvious one.
Right.
Oh, when Dorothy was lamenting to the nurses about, I've got this whole period of time that's missing. Again, missing time.
Yeah.
She's saying it hurts my brain to think about it. And I wonder if she meant that literally, or maybe think about like hypnosis or some planted block in the memory from television and films, where if you try to remember, you get like literal pain. It's like a spell, you know.
Yeah, lots about missing time, which if we circle that back to one of the overarching mysteries of the series, which is it seems like there's pockets of missing time. It does bring up the question again of, is this like the first baby that she's lost post-birth? Yeah. So I don't know. When we look at like the other years that are missing.
How much time is it?
Right.
Well, I believe it was about, I've looked and I could be wrong, but I believe it's about 5 years that are left out of the DVDs.
5
it goes
years?
From 11 to 17, I believe.
Yeah, so you're missing 4 or 5 years, missing from between like 2012 to through 2016 or 2017.
That's a long time.
It's a long time, yeah.
Oh, can we go back to the beginning?
Yeah.
When Dorothy's watching herself in a previous time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
News. Afterwards, after finding her, Sean says, "Oh, you were the queen of Halloween," and then he says, "That was your best year ever." And I just thought that was kind of weird. Like, and I wrote, "What year?"
That's the joke there.
Yeah.
Very funny. What year? Yeah. What year?
Oh, and was that Isabel as the cat? The newscasters.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't.
It sounds like Isabel.
I did not. That did not cross. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I mean the guy I recognized because I knew his voice, but I didn't know about the girl. I'd have to listen to it again.
Go back. Oh, Leanne with the youth, because I noted that when she finds the nurse fairy, which is in the attic, she's like, "Those are Dorothy's mother's boxes. You cannot go through them. Don't touch them." And then brings them to the youths and says,
Here
you go crazy. But these are Dorothy's mom's clothes, so return them when you're done with them.
That's such like a teenager thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, teenagers out there. We love you.
So she tells them, I want you to dress up. You're going to patrol. I think the cult is after me, getting kind of old land. And she said that thing about, if I get close enough, they always reveal themselves, which we talked about a little bit earlier. The fact that I don't think anyone has gotten close. Leanne, it's you. I'm a cult member.
Yeah, we talked about that. I think that is a very interesting point to bring up. Like, what is she talking about?
Perhaps being attacked, but that's not presented in that way.
Yeah, they're close because they're attacking you.
Or they're like marking you with their weird oils.
Right.
I mean, I understand, like, if you've experienced physical trauma where, you were expected to whip yourself. Like, I understand that there's trauma from that. But yeah, you guys Lizzie brought up a great point, the fact that that hasn't actually happened. So she hasn't gotten close to anyone, in this situation, only to have them betray her, at least in that way. Like, Dorothy's not a cult. Well, as of yet, Dorothy hasn't been revealed to be a cult member or, have been a cult member in the past.
It's not right. It's not some superpower that she has.
Yeah.
And then that note about, a dreadlocked girl saying, "I've never dressed up for Halloween before. My dad said it was sinful." Leanne says, "Can I tell you a secret? sin can be fun.
Oh
Kind
my
of
God.
parroting the nurses.
No. We're assuming that those people that are following Leanne are former cult members. So it's kind of like her saying, hey, once you break out of that cult, like there's a whole lot of things that we didn't know about that are fun.
And I wondered if she'd smuggled wine in the boxes. Because the first thing we see when they're partying is a glass or a bottle of wine being smashed on the ground.
Oh, something I did
find. Oh, maybe.
Yeah. Something that's true. That's good. Yeah. I also found interesting, like when she was using, so now Leanne is using the surveillance system just to watch and look and spy on the neighbors.
Yeah.
But I also noticed too that, there were many empty wine bottles sitting there.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah. And I thought, we know that Julian drinks, but it did make me wonder if Leanne is drinking more and more, and if some of this is paranoid delusions from her drinking too much.
Yeah. Or maybe she's making Julian sit up with her at night and watch.
Yeah.
Oh my. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that.
And Julian's like, not without a bottle of wine.
It kind of reminded me of like the way The Office was when Dorothy was searching for Leanne at the beginning of season 2, where there was like wine bottles everywhere and cups with old drinks there. You know what I mean? Like somebody had been up all night drinking and going crazy looking for stuff.
Yeah.
And that Leanne was kind of now doing that same thing.
Although she looks a lot better doing it.
Sure. Yeah. I do think sometimes the lines get blurry between like them as individuals in general, right? Like, but that goes down
that kind of
a rabbit
happens.
hole.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has been Leanne studying Dorothy.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I would agree. Yeah.
And if you're around somebody long enough, it kind of just happens naturally. I think you like become accustomed to each other's like mannerisms and ways of speaking because you like communicate better.
Yeah. What is it? You're most like the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
I had a thought too. This is kind of a diversion of a thought, but regarding Sean, because we were talking about, I was thinking this episode because, at the end where he goes to Dorothy and he is talking about like, hey, I'm on your team or whatever. I know that he's expressed that he feels somewhat responsible for having left Dorothy with Jericho when he maybe shouldn't have, or should have secured help for her before he left or whatever. And I know he feels guilt about that. However, we've not seen him show or express any anger at all about what happened when he was gone. And I just find that to be a little unrealistic.
Anger at Dorothy, you mean, or the whole?
Yeah, I mean, in general, certainly, but at Dorothy. Well, what do you guys think about that?
That goes to something that I noted in that footage that Dorothy's watching from, whatever that year was. Sean is in the picture being goofy and silly. And Dorothy mentions, everyone loves a power couple. And I wrote, Sean happy versus how he is when we meet him in season 1. Kind of dour and not much of a sense of humor and not engaging much with the outside world. It seems like he's been angry ever since.
Yeah.
I would also imagine that he wouldn't feel comfortable being angry because we're,
Right. Yeah. Well, perhaps he really didn't have time to be angry because his wife was catatonic and he was just dealing with one horrible tragedy, followed by another, and there wasn't much space for his anger to be directed, at anyone specifically.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Other than himself or, or the world at large.
Right. Some people just shut down and like bottle it up and then wait till later or never. Right. Like
and the whole grieving process, which 5 stages of grief and all of that was essentially put on hold because Dorothy.
And it's not. Yeah. And it's non-linear anyhow. Like you can go back and forth between like a bunch of ads.
Yeah, you're absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I imagine that was the period when he and Julian got close.
Right.
Because he really had no one else to turn to.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to mention that involves Sean before we move on, because I want us to talk about Leanne in the house and whatnot, is just, and this is just like a random little thing, but imagery. I felt like a lot of this episode was Sean trying to figure out like what he needed to do to help Dorothy or to help the family. And he did finally come to you know, that I have to support Dorothy and not Leanne by the end of it. But, you know, we saw him doing a bunch of stuff. And one of the things was him like at the railing where Dorothy fell or was pushed or whatever. And it was replaced, but it was sitting there replaced with white banister.
Yeah.
And it's black. And so it wasn't stained. And I thought, I mean, the first thought is, why wouldn't you stain it? Like, why would you want that reminder? Right?
That was my immediate, I was like, why would you
why would you just leave it like that? But the other thing I was thinking was just the black and white, you know, which brings us back to like the good and the evil. And I watched Across the Sea episode of Lost this week, just since we had that last week, and I wanted to watch it just to see if there was anything else that I took away from it. And so that was just still fresh on my mind, and it was the black and white there, and I was like, that's interesting. So just more interesting imagery. That's all.
And again, the way that Uncle George talks about what would happen if they're not successful.
Yeah. Chaos accelerates is what he said.
No world for your children. Excuse me, George?
And the chaos accelerates goes back to what I saw a lot of happening in this episode, like the nurses encouraging Leanne to embrace Halloween, Leanne encouraging the youth to embrace sin. I keep going back to the Bible and, you know, good, evil, and I know we'll get there.
Right. Yeah.
Chaos comes up a lot.
Yes.
It's like stirring up all of the everything at once, emotions and the you know, I guess environmental impact, and like streets are like on fire every other day with some new nonsense with the bugs and the penises.
Bugs and penises.
Bugs and penises.
What more could you ask for?
If we named our episodes, that's what I would name it.
Wonderful. That's a double click for me.
Right? Exactly.
What is that? What's going on now?
What's that about?
All right. Yeah.
Hashtag. It'll be one of our tags.
Great.
Back to Dorothy for a minute.
That's good.
When Sean, you know, brings him up in his awful costume, the way Leanne was talking to him, like, I love you, you little stinker. And, you know, how's my favorite crustacean? It rang false. Did it, or awkward?
It did to me too, but more maybe I just thought of it in terms of like when you're really struggling emotionally, especially like if there's a child around, sometimes you overcompensate.
Like you're just still trying to.
Yeah. I'm kind of going to what I think you, Aunt, have been saying about Dorothy and her mothering. There hasn't been a lot of it.
Right.
Not a lot of direct mothering.
I mean, well, now I guess she has nothing to do, and I mean, people do have emotions, but yeah, she seems to just be very ornamental.
Well, we talked a lot last year, the year before, and whatever about Jericho being used as like a prop,
right?
And I really feel that more now than even ever before.
Well, now he's everybody's. Now it's the focal point of this weird tension between Leanne and Dorothy. So that's bait, and then
it's just, you know, if you've got a child, even an infant, or what is he now, 2, 1.5, you develop all kinds of nicknames.
Yeah.
Well, that
Boo, boo boo, whatever. But she doesn't seem to have those.
Or she's like trying a different one on.
Yeah.
And usually they develop out of your like time with them and your experiences with them, and the nicknames develop that way. And so maybe that's why it feels false, because we haven't seen those moments happen, because they haven't, or they've happened off camera, one or the other.
Yeah. And the, you know, like just one piece of candy and don't let them get spooked. I don't think babies eat candy, and it seemed performative mothering.
Right, exactly. Like these are the things you're supposed to say, and this is how you're supposed to act.
Correct.
Well, she's trying to maintain any control she can, I guess.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Maybe.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, the episode opens up with her talking to her mannequin mother. How do y'all feel about this mannequin at this point?
I mean, everybody needs someone to talk to, and if you're being shut out by the situation you created, where else do you go?
Yeah.
Even if it is just a way of like, you know, some people pray.
Yeah, that's true. Ooh, that's true too. Yeah.
kind of just like a focus for your internal sorting of your own thoughts, I guess. Unless she's like a little further unhinged and Mother is in there in some sense.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great, those are great points. Yeah.
It also seemed like she like really wished that she could talk to her mother. Because she's asking like, did you go through this? Yeah. Were you ever afraid of yourself? Maybe I got this from you. Here's what's happening with me. I'm wrestling with it, but not really.
She's got the mannequin with the eye patch.
The eye patch is a choice for sure, but if she's like, did this ever happen to you? Like, how much do you know about your mother then, really?
Yeah, I mean, is Mother her real mother? Was her mother Aunt Josephine and they were one and the same?
I mean, she may have been adopted by whomever.
Yeah, I don't know what we're supposed to like, who we're supposed to, I guess, think of as Leanne's mother.
Right, it's kind of up in the air now.
Yeah.
Because usually you'd have some kind of a focus rather than like, I mean, I know everybody like needs or wants a mother, but like contemplate on the idea of mother. Like usually you have somebody in mind.
Well, and I think we previously thought that Leanne's mother died in that fire, right?
Yeah.
But now we don't know if that was even the Leanne that we're seeing.
Right.
And people come back.
And people sometimes come back. And why is Mother wearing an eye patch when that's how she killed Aunt Josephine?
Yeah.
Poke her through the eye.
So is Mother a generalized thing? Like Mother, this mannequin Mother is any of the women that have influenced her in a motherly way, whether it was Aunt Josephine or her birth mother or Aunt May or Dorothy. Yeah. Or is Mother specifically her actual mother? Maybe it's Mother as a concept. Like if I had a mother to talk to, this is what I would ask her.
Yeah, just like a filter, not a filter, like a sounding board for your.
Yeah. Because she does clearly long for that.
Well, that's the whole thing with Dorothy.
Yeah. Right.
The attention and the connection, and I guess
be my mom.
Right. So she wants to go hunting. She dresses up and we get some more music and her sensual moving and dancing, which is usually indicates evil Leanne is coming out to play.
Yes.
I did enjoy some of like the slasher play of the episode. We got a lot of like Scream type.
Well, she dresses up as a doll.
Yeah.
Some very on the nose costumes in this episode.
For sure.
Of all things,
a doll.
I'm a doll.
And she's still really toying with her influence and her abilities.
Right.
So, so that brings us back to the ever-present question of like, what is she influencing? Like when Sean is outside and he has the people walk by and they're like, hey, Sean, love your show. What up, Sean? He's getting like that adoration from the fans, which he enjoys. He looks up and he sees Leanne in the window. And I do feel like this look passes across his face and he finally is starting to wonder, like, is this real or is Leanne controlling this? Is this being created by her? And it kind of harkens back to season 1 and, that first or second episode when he's trying to get Jericho out the door and she's standing there, making it so that she's messing with the alarm code, and he looks at her in a way that's almost like, what was that about? Was that you? But, it was so early on that how would he even believe that as being possible? But now this time when he looks and he sees her watching him a bit ominously, maybe his brain goes, oh, maybe it is her that's causing this all to happen. So it just seemed to me like maybe he was starting to question things in the way that he probably should have been questioning from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Well, I, again, go back to season 3 when Leanne first started posing the idea of him being famous and being on TV more. And then he's offered the job doing Gauntlet 2, which would be the worst thing for him to do ever. And you'd think it would be traumatizing because that was his role in Jericho's death, being away doing the show. But towards the end of Commitment, Leanne walks right up to him and in his ear says, take the job, Sean. Like he doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And the empty vices and the keeping people distracted and
he's gone so far hard into like that lifestyle. Like not only is he on TV. He's like on TV and he's obnoxious and he's like known for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would assume, like,
yeah. So do you think that that was like a moment of realization for him? And then, because then he goes to the balcony, he goes to the banister like shortly after that, and he's touching it. And to me, that was to indicate that he was considering that maybe
that she may have done that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. He was afraid of her in Pigeon.
Like he's finally willing to admit that she does have some kind of power that she is exerting.
Right.
Over everyone.
And then he has it confirmed in the end when he's like, I know that I owe everything to you.
Right.
And I'm so grateful for it, but I don't want it at the expense of my family or losing Dorothy. And Leanne is just very quick and blunt and says, you made your choice. You're an adult. Deal with the consequences. Confirms it.
Right.
I offered this to you. You chose to take it. Deal with it.
She's kind of going like, you knew.
Yeah.
And you went with it anyway.
And that annoyance, I believe a lot of that goes back to Bug when she's talking to Julian in the nursery and she's like, I've given you guys everything to make you happy. And you're all still miserable all the time. I hate being taken for granted. It makes me mad.
2 questions though. If that's so easy, is that much of an effort for her to be doing that for them? Having brought Jericho back? If like bringing Jericho back is so easy and like somehow influencing situations that he can like get these major jobs and I guess hobbling Dorothy. Like, is she really like doing anything for them at the expense of herself? Like, is it it's purely selfish. So like, why would I carry on entertaining the facade of the
if they don't appreciate me?
Right.
Like, why not just leave, F them and leave?
And it works both ways like that. And just like, it's like not coming from a genuine, like, doesn't that scare you? If it's like an evil thing or it's like manifested from
part of him waking up, I think, is now being afraid of her and realizing we have to get rid of her. He's not doing it just for Dorothy. He's realizing we have to get her out.
Right. Then that's my other question though. Like, if he intends to get her out, he said he's doing it for his family. If he gets her out,
-1.
That baby goes probably, right?
Right.
So is he aware of that? Like, is he thinking?
I think he's realizing none of this is right. It feels wrong. It feels ick. But it feels wrong, like to the core. Dorothy is real. My marriage is real. I'm not going to let that go too.
But that's a good question, Anne.
Right.
I wonder if there will be him going, well, I wonder if he will, I don't know. Maybe there'll be a conversation with Julian. Because if you recall, Julian did say to him that that Jericho and Leanne were tied together.
Right.
But I wonder if he really gets it.
Like, in my panic to fix my nonsense with my wife, am I also realizing that like sometimes people forget things?
Yeah. No, you have a great point. Yeah. Is he going, are we going to see him next week realize like, oh crap, now I'm going to have to get Dorothy I'm going to have to tell Dorothy.
Because I could even see it's either going to be that or they like get to a point where it is like, okay, we can like let go of this. And then he's like, wait a minute. That's not my baby, or some kind of like they just have the doll.
Yeah.
That's that. They'll play with the tension for that probably like what you said, like to get Dorothy back into the realm of we need to.
Because I do think there has to be some kind of conversation of okay, well, if we're gonna get Leanne out of here, then you know what that means,
right? So
what does that look like? What does that conversation look like?
Well, that's the waking up, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or some version of
M. Night in interviews, for the first season was saying, Leanne and the doll, Jericho, are keeping Dorothy and Sean from having the conversation they need to have.
Right.
So I keep going back to season 1 and interviews from M. Night back then.
No, I think that's good. And we keep seeing these little conversations with Dorothy and Sean that are more honest than we've seen before. And so I think that that's like a hopeful thing and probably inching us closer to that conversation that needs to be had.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. And the alliance against Leanne, which we got.
Right.
One thing I noted when Sean and Dorothy are talking earlier, and Dorothy's like, stop pretending, we've both made choices. We're not the same people that we were before, or we're not who we were before. I wrote, what choices have you made, Dorothy?
Yeah, you're right about that, because I kind of thought that too. I'm like, we both made choices. What choices?
Yeah, like trying to leave in the middle of the night.
Right.
Maybe
that's the only thing I can think of.
To keep going to work.
But what did she do that she thinks drove a wedge between, in their marriage?
I mean, other than him wanting to embrace religion to some extent last season and her not wanting to do that, I can't really think of any others like that have occurred within the parameters of.
Unless she just means them having had gotten help and now Leanne is the problem.
Okay.
But like she wanted
I thought
the
of that
babysitter
too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a big deal for Sean. It was just like, all right, if you want that, whatever.
Yeah, but now it is, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Maybe. I don't.
Or even just the choice to keep trying to get pregnant and to carry a pregnancy all the way through.
That's a lot of emotion and stress and anger.
Yeah,
yeah, probably.
Right. Instead of like going, hey, let's do in vitro, or let's adopt, or you know what I mean?
Even that's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just like, let's keep getting pregnant and keep losing these babies. And I want to have a baby. So I'm going to keep, and you love me and you're going to keep giving it to me, because you don't want to tell me no. I don't know.
We don't really have much of a handle on that specific setup time.
Yeah. But point is, you have a good point, Liz. Yeah, because I kind of felt the same way. Again, with this sort of false construct, this house of cards that begins to fall when you start to really look at the reality of it.
What is important?
Right, yeah.
Should we talk about Leanne's big night out?
Yeah. So, hunting children.
Yeah.
So she did start by looking at like the dude that she thought was creepy, that looked like he was suspicious. So she was, spying on him and went and confronted him at his home with that scary dog Doberman that, was barking. But again, it's all these sort of false things. Like she's in there and she realizes that he's not coming after her.
Not in that moment.
So like she kept going after what she thought was people that were, out to get her, and they weren't. And so then it kind of just she turns her attention to costumed children, thinking that underneath every costume was a cult member. And that turned real dark real quick.
Yeah.
So I liked the Scream homage. There've been fun horror homages in every episode.
Yeah.
I think we're doing a short video on it, but yeah, that was fun. Toby walking away, and then the other guy and her being like, go away, Toby, I told you.
Yeah. Definitely a good little, even the way he like lifts his mask up and all that stuff. Yeah. It was very, very Scream-esque.
And then right up to the point where he gets her alone and pulls the knife.
So what do you guys think about that? Because there was a lot of mixed feelings on Reddit from some people who thought like, hey, dude, if somebody did that to me and had been following me and cornered me, like,
I mean, yeah, that's what happens.
That's what happens. And then other people are like, it's Halloween and people dress up and
not like you, but you don't
not like that.
Not like that.
I'm not gonna follow you for blocks just for a vague laugh, or you're gonna.
And they were like, well, if you've been through.
Maybe if I knew you.
Yeah.
And even then, no.
But you don't corner a young woman and pull out a knife.
Right, even
other people said, well, if you've been through trauma like that, then maybe you don't go out on Halloween.
Oh, come on.
I mean, maybe you don't. But like, that's my business or whatever.
Exactly.
But like,
yeah.
There's just some things you don't do.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless you want your arm broken.
Yeah.
See, that's exactly. I mean, maybe it's not the best solution, but you got to.
No, but I mean, I agree. I think that she had every right to be scared in that situation. That kid pulled a knife like he was going to stab her, even though it was a fake knife.
Although she didn't seem scared at all. It was more gleeful, like, ooh.
Like, ooh, you
want to go?
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What I noticed was that the sound effects people had the knife making very metallic sounds when it fell on the ground, when it spun around.
I think the point of that is also probably to like, that's what Leanne hears. That's what she sees. That's her perception. So
Yeah.
I think by the end it was obvious that like it was kind of like that one, like with Tiger, where maybe there's 9 instances where it's all in her head and everything we're seeing and hearing is in her head, but then that 10th time it will be legit, it will be the cult or whatever. But yeah, it was definitely meant to be like we were looking at it from her perspective.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think so.
The little girl, before she left, when the little girl came trick-or-treating, pulling her away and saying, don't eat too much candy, you're going to turn into a fat little worm. Hey, by the way, nobody loves you.
Jesus Christ.
That was so funny.
Oh my God, what a monster.
I wrote Leanne trying to be playful and not knowing how. Like not knowing how to do a prank.
Yeah, maybe.
She's never done this before. She's still like cult girl, emotionally stunted Leanne.
Get it, but I don't feel like that was the intention behind it. I feel like her intention was to be mean and scary because she thought it was fun, not because other people would think it was fun.
Right. No, I get that too.
But I get what you're saying. It's a good point. It's a good point.
It was just such an odd way of doing it.
It was, yeah. But it also made me think again of like the Aunt Josephine thing. Like I remember when we saw her like running around the basement with Sergio Marino and she was like, oh, Aunt Josephine's gonna get you. And they were like sort of playful like that.
Trying on her persona of I'm dark Leanne.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Can I say how annoying I found that the whole dark Leanne, the ha ha ha.
Yeah,
I'm evil.
She's done this before.
I know. Not so overtly.
No, but I mean, maybe you're right. But it's just she's always like, oh, I like it. Like, okay,
right.
I know.
She said like, right, I like it, but not in like the sing-songy kind of performance. Yeah, that got on my nerves.
Yeah,
it didn't ring true.
And why isn't she a little more like concerned about that?
That or like a little more consistent.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
We still have these little oops moments.
Right. The emotional moments, the I need my mommy moments. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I guess that can be said for anyone that sort of becomes a monster that doesn't happen overnight. But
and some part of you is still
that scared child or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Is it time to talk about the darkness?
Let's do it. Let's talk about the darkness.
Because I am 80% sure that this darkness is a separate entity that existed in the house before Leanne got there. And Leanne just happens to be like the perfect vessel. And it is keeping Leanne subdued as much as she's keeping Sean subdued with something that it thinks she wants, which is power.
Which I think is a really interesting like additional take on it. Not just that, but that it is giving her what she wants just as much as she's giving the Turners what they want. What do you think about that, Aunt?
I don't
like where are you at on the darkness being pre-existing or not?
That's hard for me to grasp onto because like it's a lot of logical leaps for me because then that would imply that like something else was going on and like what else would have been going on like to warrant that? I don't.
The many deaths in the house, whatever happened to Dorothy and Julian's mom.
Yeah, and then the bugs. I guess you could kind of make an argument. You can make an argument for like the termites and the hole in the basement, and like you could. I could maybe get
Leanne.
So then, what is the house?
The house is the OG darkness that's now moving
but
through
Leanne being a perfect vessel has accelerated its chaos or its power.
Like the way that when she arrived first in the first season, the way that she was able to get things done, her power before, if it really was a supernatural power, was writing in her Bible. Sean with the splinters and to a journal to Leanne working through this darkness to have power.
And perhaps when she killed Aunt Josephine, that was kind of a big sort of
big step. Yeah, because that's when she started got this dark. I don't know why I I don't know why I do these things, and I kind of like it, and it scares
So
me.
once the darkness knew that she liked it, then it was able to.
Well, yeah, like the more she used it,
yeah,
the deeper it got,
right.
like a parasite.
I could make this make sense in the way that like everybody's going through like extreme negative experience, like and having lost a child, and I guess, you know, Leanne not having a family specifically. So then like kind of in a way that you can like not you can, but like I mean people think you can like manifest uh, pretty much anything if you give enough thought to it.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Right.
in that way, there's
Mm-hmm.
like a creeping darkness from all of them.
Yeah.
If that makes
Well, what do you make of the vision?
That's just, I think that was just Leanne probably feeling her,
That
whatever it is that's taking her.
that
And then, like,
Beverly had.
and it's also very predictive, too, if what George is saying is true. Like, she's going to, like, bring chaos to Philadelphia, I suppose, and the world at large.
So,
like, okay, if we take, okay, let's look at like a real world example, right?
Mm,
So, like, somebody like Hitler, is there nature versus nurture? Is it genetically, you know, personality disorders? Is it a combination of all of those things that make someone do that?
absolutely. All of it, for sure.
Yeah.
Your upbringing, your monetary
Right.
status, your
Yeah, it's like a perfect storm of
where
things.
you live. Absolutely.
Yeah,
we're talking about a supernatural element that's been brought
right
into the story,
right.
introduced.
Right. Via, like, extremity of situation, I think.
But I guess, yeah, is it, but I guess my point is, like, are you saying that had Leanne never entered this house, that this darkness would have remained contained, and that her power would have been harnessed differently if she'd remained with the cult, and, you know,
Right.
Correct.
Like,
it wouldn't
it's
grow
more
to
like,
this, what we're seeing.
yeah, it's more like they would be sad they don't have a baby, and like
Yeah.
maybe that would be a difficult time for them, and maybe they would like get a divorce or like whatever, like just normal things, not like
Right, this madness.
right.
Yeah. Looking at that, if the house is a vessel containing spirits as well as dark entities that were not ever human, those things, if we like are operating in a world where those things exist, then I think it does make sense that she would be a willing vessel for anything that had the power, you know, that had power already. And okay, it's like if you're a ghost, okay, it's like if you're a ghost hunter and you are ghost hunting at a location, and you know, and like I said, this is assuming that you believe in all of this, whether or not you do or whatever, but assuming you do, and you go ghost hunting and you encounter a demonic entity, or even if it's just ghosts, spirits, or whatever, one of the things that you say is, you cannot attach to me, you cannot follow me home, you cannot, you know, like, I'm leaving, I'm closing the veil, and you have to stay
circle.
Yeah. So if someone's not doing that, if someone is saying use me, you know, or is allowing it to use them as a vessel, then that's what's happening here with Leanne.
Yeah, and starts to think of it as a symbiotic entity.
Yes,
like
exactly.
You're my power. You're my new power.
Yeah.
You're really cool. And I like this.
Yeah.
I like feeling powerful. Is it good? I don't know, but is it good for me? Probably not, but I'm enjoying it.
Liz, sinning is good.
On Halloween only.
Right.
But yeah, and then I think that it's, you know, symbiotic. It's working its way into her as well, and it's saying you are dark, you know, you create chaos, you're a chaos agent,
and it begins to get in your psyche.
Yeah, you know, you instead of a ghost hunter, imagine a reincarnated emotionally stunted girl with issues coming into the house and going, oh, I feel something.
Yeah, I need direction.
Sensing a power here. This is great. I just think she's the perfect servant, if you will. Yeah.
I love that. Servant. Again, and I think we said this last year too, like, who is serving who? Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
I think if there's any twist, that'll be the twist, that it's not Leanne. It's really something separate.
Yeah. So perhaps the ending also looks like Leanne being freed from her servitude of this darkness.
Correct.
Could be.
And the cult.
Right. Living or dying or whatever happens. But, ultimately being freed from that some way, whether probably in death, but maybe not. But if she's already dead, then, I don't know.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, and
I do think that, like, if you look at all of the tech issues that we've seen in the home, that does make a case for, spirits and entities and stuff like that, right? The hurt guy with the, because power tends to is supposed to get sucked from technological things. Hearing, I think we heard like other people talking radio frequency stuff with the baby monitor. So there's been a lot of different like weird techie things, even looking at the TV, like why does the TV just magically turn on? Like there's lots of different weird tech stuff. It even made me think about like the coffee, the espresso machine that only Sean was able to work. The stove ant, the stove ant. That's another good one. Yeah, all of these like mechanical type things that are being operated without anyone doing anything to them.
Oh, what if that's why Dorothy and Sean use old tech?
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's more like batteries versus electricity or whatever. I know nothing about it, but
they feed on the charge of the battery. Like a lot of times, if you believe in ghost hunting stuff, they'll have a fully charged whatever device that they bring to a ghost hunt, and then somehow that device is drained of all its battery life, like in an inordinate amount of time, like super short amount of time. So that might answer some of those questions that we've had along the way, those little mysteries. I think that's like, I guess, as we sort of come to the end of this discussion, is there's like so many different questions and things that have come up. And that's why I say, like, maybe there is stuff that has been answered or that is being answered along the way. And you just but there's so many different categories of like where like things fit. Where things fit. Exactly. That it still might seem confusing. Like, but there's not going to be one big answer that we get that's going to answer every single question.
No, right. It's like,
it's going to be a bunch
of a conversation.
Yeah. Right. One of our listeners last week on our latest deep dive said something that I thought was really, really interesting that I loved. And they said, knowing that this apartment is there makes you wonder all the times that Jericho has like disappeared and reappeared. If Leanne knew about that apartment, is it not possible that like that's where he was? And she brought up the time where like where Julian and Boba, where Julian heard Jericho praying on the monitor, but was like holding the doll, and Jericho like wasn't in the house. So where was Jericho? And then at the end of that episode, you see Wanda with like the baby carrier, and Toby passes her on the street.
Right, because it has a separate street entrance.
Right. So I just thought that was a really astute observation and wanted to shout out to that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
How much does everybody really know?
Right. Exactly.
About where they are.
Yeah.
Give us answers. We want more information.
So, yeah. I wish we had all the answers. But yeah, that conversation between Roscoe and George was awesome. I love it. I want more of it, though. I do want less caginess. I'd like a little bit more advancement on what plan it is. Although if there is some grand plan reveal that's going to be like, oh, then awesome. But I'm definitely, I feel a little agita. I'm wanting a little bit more of an idea of where things are heading, but
especially with some more clear exposition that we've been getting,
or some reveal of some kind. I think maybe that's why there's some unrest too, is because we're 4 episodes in and we haven't gotten any like new reveals.
No, I
just like spaces.
We have
all of the same information that we did at the end of season 3, and we don't really have any new information yet.
That's what I was saying. Every episode I'm like, all right, that's one less precious episode.
Yeah.
when are you going to answer in the trailer? All questions will be answered. All will be revealed. When?
When? Yeah. There's
Get
like
on with it.
Yeah, there's only a few hours left.
Yeah, literally.
Literally.
Each episode is so short.
So short. And you're going like, how is it that there's so much we still need to know and these are still get less than 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
so quick.
Yeah.
What about the whole timey-wimey thing introduced last season?
Yeah. So let's quickly, I guess, go through some of the threads / questions that we feel haven't actually been answered in a satisfying way, if at all.
Okay,
what are those threads we want picked up?
Why is it always September 15th in that house? And why do Dorothy's calendars not make sense with the dates and the years and the days?
Right.
Why did Dorothy forget Julian's birthday? Those 2 years.
And why should 2011 not even count?
Right. And why didn't the alarm code work for Sean? What were the splinters about?
I do feel like the alarm code was probably a Leanne thing.
You think?
Fucking with Sean?
Yeah. I think she was just fucking with him. Yeah.
Okay.
And she didn't want him to leave the house. And she also knows that that baby is dependent upon her. Like,
right.
So that's I do feel like that has been answered.
Well, then what about the doll baby question? Who exactly is Jericho 2.0?
Right. Who and what is Jericho? Yeah. I know.
Right.
I know
who, what, and how.
I know what I think, but no, it hasn't been answered. Yeah. Specifically. Who the Marinos are. I do, I've been vocal about how similar they are to the Turners in a lot of ways. And so I would like to know like who they are and what their importance is, or if they are tied to this story, or was it just similar because that's what Leanne does?
It seems like similar, tension-filled home situations, and maybe that's we don't know exactly what her application was there either. So maybe that's something she's meant to alleviate, but I don't think that's been answered yet either.
I mean, we know that the boy that lived in that home is the one that dumped the stuff on Aunt May.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the teenage boy.
What did he do?
He, the video of Aunt May where she gets the milkshake or whatever dumped on her head in the mall?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's the teenage boy that lives in the Marino home, because you see like the same hat and the same outfit.
Oh.
It's never said. It's just you see it it was a little thing that we
visual.
Yeah, a little visual thing that we caught that was the same.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, why do Julian and the Sergio look so much alike?
Right, yeah. I would like to know like what the deal is with Julian and Frank and the rings and the sort of mysterious work that the family does, and how are all of Julian's random girlfriends tied into that? Like it's always women, Wanda works for the family, Vera, Natalie, all of them seem to now, maybe not Natalie, maybe Natalie, was connected to Julian through Dorothy. But aside from her, the others seem to have had some sort of connection with the family, right? Or was Vera also just somebody he met at rehab? I can't remember.
Rehab was the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. But Natalie, it wouldn't be out of the question for Frank to have been paying her bills or checks or whatever.
I'm glad you mentioned that again. I wanted to mention this about Frank. I'm probably going to post just a little video like I did last week with the preacher, but I went back and I watched the scene in that episode, Boba, where he comes in and they have that conversation.
I gotta get rid of this place. Sooner the better. Too many ghosts. I don't think the market's right. Maybe in the spring. It's apple blossom time. What's the matter? You drying out? Ish. If I were to show you something, Juju, would you swear to secrecy?
And I did just think that like maybe it was a little clue because he's drinking the wine and he says, I need something with more body. Which I just thought could have been a fun play on words because immediately we got the conversation in the basement.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was kind of funny that he mentioned needing more body and then talked about ghosts who would then presumably not have any in the cellar with the wine. So I just felt like that was a really cool, fun clue that could play into the idea of there being actual ghosts wandering around.
Yeah. Why is Frank so averse to the house?
Right. Yeah.
You know, gave it to Dorothy and Sean, but rarely visits and wants them to sell.
And to say too many ghosts, I mean, I know it can be figurative, but it could also be literal. Maybe he does know more about this house than he's letting on.
Maybe the previous owners had died, or
yeah.
And how did Uncle George know about Dorothy or seem to know her?
Right. Yes.
You know, I know you, girl.
Yeah.
Calling her Dottie.
Right. So yeah, the girlfriends that always seem to disappear. His knowledge of Dorothy. I guess too, who or what is Leanne?
Right.
Yeah. Something I really want to know. Is she really Leanne reincarnated, or is she somebody else?
Right.
Yeah, what goes on with these fires?
Right.
And how much
fire?
time?
That's true too, Aunt. You're right. Lots of fire surrounding.
Cleansing.
That's probably at least some of it.
Yeah.
And how much time did Leanne have with her mother? Because she talks about all the abuse and all these events and every year with the king cake.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You know?
Because there's a lot of like exposition that makes you think that she was with her mom for a long time, but then you see that she died young. They died young. So again, it kind of maybe circles back to mother. Who exactly are we talking about when she talks about her mother?
Big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially since now that they've like kind of addressed it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then so episode 9 is supposed to be about Sean, right?
So I have not read the titles all the way through because I didn't want to. I'm not averse to it. I didn't want to at the beginning of the season. Now that we're halfway into it, I'm a little more interested, but I wanted to come in a little less like formulated with where I thought it was heading. So what are the upcoming titles? Do you guys know?
I thought one of you said this, or maybe it was on Reddit, that episode 9 is supposed to be a Sean backstory heavy episode. And that's something that we need.
That would be interesting timing too.
Right?
And what maybe lends itself to those of us that have said that Sean is more pivotal here than what is the house, I think, is important, and how many babies or is Jericho is Jericho the first live like two-term baby that they've lost, or were there others?
Yes.
Anything else? Aunt, are there any that you really want answered? You can think of talk about?
Not that we haven't covered really. Everything's pretty much, I think we've nailed everything. I guess more of what George is supposed to be doing, more of like more of all of that really. Like what are like their religious implications of everything, or like what does it mean that how does she have so much power to like upset the world at large, if that's, you know, if he's not being facetious.
Yeah. And if all of the cult members have some degree of power, can they not combine their powers to
right?
Yeah.
Right. And if she's such basically the same thing, like, you know, like if she has so much influence, why not get everything and everybody?
Well, look at what happened in episode 1, Pigeon.
Yeah, this is very true.
I mean, that was a pretty easy squash.
I guess you can't really overwhelm the mind so easily.
They need to be able to catch her unawares.
Right.
Yeah. I want to know more about Roscoe. What really happened in his time when he was gone?
That's a good one.
You know, that whole hypnosis scene.
They took his eyes and like the hook, and they never left. And
creepy.
Yeah, we've really backed off on like the backstory of the cult, I think.
Yes.
Recently. And you're right. That is important. I do want, yeah, I want to know about that too.
They're kind of big details to just gloss over.
Yeah. And like where, if they didn't leave, where were they?
Right.
You know, and how did the news stories, like, are the news stories, how are they a part of all of this? Like, are they meant to be foreshadowing? Are they meant to be clues? Like, what is the purpose of those in the grand story?
The hospitals are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because they seem to be doing more of that this season than they had for a while. It was heavy in season 1.
Right.
And
a little in season 2, less in, like, barely any in 3.
Yeah,
right.
then they started like doing different things on TV.
Now it's been like every episode.
Yeah. But different than season 1, but still.
Right.
So maybe serving a different purpose now than they did in season 1, but regardless.
There's a bit of a through line to some sort of relevance.
Yeah. That's a lot for 6 episodes.
I would say so. Only so many more.
But I still have faith.
Yeah, no,
I do too.
Everything is wonderful.
Neighbors is the next episode.
Neighbors. Those 2 women that answered the door. The other new neighbors. They're actresses that I recognize. I mean, they're not just, nobody bit players.
Right.
So I'll bet anything they're the part of the cult.
Yeah. And the ones that are going to come for dinner, right?
Oh, that should be interesting.
The dinner parties are amazing, so it's sure to be full of subtext and interesting tension.
Maybe more placenta?
But yes, I do think that them being maybe culty.
They're super culty.
Yeah. And maybe they got smarter, because if you notice, like, Leanne peeked in and she saw the Yves Saint Laurent purse, and she saw material things and nice shoes, and that's what really made her go like, oh, okay, they must not be culties.
Right.
That's what I thought.
But, sure, but maybe they're just getting smarter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
And we saw that couple buying the house.
Right.
Last season.
They looked very culty.
Well, yeah.
The way they were looking around. Like, I definitely thought they were cult members. So I wonder if we'll find out just how many neighbors are culties.
I wonder if that was also what Uncle George meant by people in place. Certain in play.
And what is the interconnectivity of all the homes on that street?
Right.
Hopefully we will find out.
We'll find out at least one of these things.
At least one. Just one. Let's give us one good answer next week, guys. That's what we're hoping for. One good answer. All right. Well, I think that covers it. You guys?
Have we've done it?
We've done it again. Oops.
Oh,
no. All right, y'all. Well, that's it. Let's bid adieu on this one, and we will be back very soon with another deep dive, and I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 smaller videos out. As usual, we're trying to do 1 or 2 a week in addition to the deep dives. So we love hearing what you guys say. So if I have to say too, so I loved the input we got last week. Thank you so much for watching and commenting, and would love to hear if there's any questions that are lingering for you. What are those questions? What do you want answered by the time the series ends?
And if you could subscribe, if you haven't already, it really helps. We put a lot of time and effort into doing these. We love doing them, but anything that you can do to help with subscribing.
Much appreciated, Sharon.
Indeed. Thank you. So thank you guys for subscribing and for your support. And we are just in the thick of it. So we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.